Today I'm going to show you how to take these components and turn it into a battery. I'll tell you what to get, what tools you're going to need, what tools are optional, where to get all this stuff, how to put it together, how to test it, and how to keep it safe. Alright, so here we go. We're going to talk about first step. What do you get and where do you get it? Well, the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need these cells. These are 3.2 volt cells. To make a 12 volt battery, you're going to need 4 of them. You can usually buy them in sets of 4, 8, etc. Because if you're going to make a 24 volt, you would get 8. Today we're only going to make a 12 volt, so we only need 4. You get these from China directly on 2 websites. One of 2 websites, Alibaba or AliExpress. I've used both. They both have pluses and minuses, but they work about the same. The biggest thing is that the shipping takes forever. Order these today and it'll be about a month, maybe 6 weeks to get them. Another thing is those sites are intimidating and there's a lot of cheese balls on them. So I'm actually going to link to 2 of my vendors that I use that are reputable vendors. They sell great cells because you don't want to get used cells or what they call grade B cells. You want a nice vendor selling nice cells. These are LISHEN cells. These are my personal favorite. So also from that same website, you're going to need to buy a BMS. And this is a battery management system. This one right here is actually a JBD. It's a 120 amp. And you buy them from the same place that you buy the batteries. This one is really good BMS. You can also get a daily BMS, which I don't like as much. But these are the heart and soul. And they come with these bus bars, and you use these to connect. And they should come with them. If they don't come with them, you're going to need to buy them, but they should come with the bus bar, and they should come with either a screw or a threaded rod to attach them. If they don't, you'll need to buy these, but they every time I've ever bought them, they've come with them. I also buy extra M6 screws. These terminals are an M6. M6 and M8 are the 2 most commonly used, so you might need M8s as well if you're going to connect them, and I'll show you those steps later. But I also have these. I got these from Amazon. They're excellent. Now, to connect the BMS to the battery, you hook up this battery lead cable. And to do that, you're going to need some 22 to 16 gauge ring connector. I like these. I got these from Amazon, and these are my favorite. We're also going to use these 10 amp to hook up the BMS. These are 10 amp. So we're going to need those. We're going to need some Captain tape, which I got from Amazon, and I will show you where we're going to use this later. You're going to use some of this amazing double stick tape. What I do is I like to tape the cells together. You can get this from Amazon. So those are the main components of what you're going to need. You're also going to need some basic tools. You're going to need a wrench and a screwdriver, to attach these guys. I like to use 2 because at a certain step of the process you actually need to kind of it. So 2 of them. These are very, very common. You should already have these in your toolbox. Some electrical tape, which you probably already have. Some scissors. These are excellent scissors I got from Home Depot. They cut through anything. I can actually cut through 2 gauge wire with them. Well, stranded wire. Excellent scissors. You're going to need a wire stripper and a crimping function because you're going to need to crimp these on. Again, these are pretty standard. You probably already have this in your toolbox. If you don't, you will need this. So those are the tools that you absolutely have to do this. A couple other things that are optional, but I would highly recommend, is a voltmeter. With a voltmeter, of course, you can test everything. Without a voltmeter, you're kind of flying in the dark. So I would actually say this is required. I mean, you can't do it without a voltmeter. Another thing that is optional is this guy. This is really good for reading the amperage without having to take a wire out. So you just kind of wrap it around there. And you can see what amps you got going through it. You can also use it as a voltmeter, of course, but this is an optional tool, but I would highly recommend it. This tool here, this I just got from Home Depot. This is just Harbor Freight, and what this does is it'll tell you the temperature. This is optional, but highly recommend it. A heat gun. Another thing you're going to need is a heat gun, because these, you want to heat shrink them. to make sure the seals are tight. So this is on the optional side, but again, I would recommend it. A battery charger is going to be really, really nice to have because you're going to have to charge these batteries up. And I'll talk to you about how we're going to charge them in a little bit. So this is optional, but again, I would say this is close to required. I got this one off of Amazon. You can get these from AliExpress for even cheaper. I think this was 80 bucks. I think you can get them probably 50 bucks in AliExpress. Now this is an optional thing, but I would also recommend this. This is a load tester. So once you put your battery together, you want to make sure that you're getting your actual rated capacity. So this is probably $80 off of Amazon and maybe 50 bucks off of AliExpress. You know, again, I buy things from Amazon sometimes like this because it does take forever to come from China, where if you buy it from Amazon, you pay a little bit more, but you can get it quicker. Which also, these cells, you can get these cells from Amazon. They'll come quicker, a week or two, but they'll be twice as much. I've never seen this on Amazon, so I don't think you can get this there, but these cells you can get from Amazon. So those are the basic tools that you're going to need, and a couple of tools that would be nice to have. So that's kind of it. Oh, you're going to need some foam insulation. Sorry about that. I was looking at this and I forgot to mention it. And I'll explain where that's going to go to. And this is, you can get this anywhere. I mean, this is actually just stuff that I kept from packing material that came. So this is just foam insulation or something like this. You can probably have this lying around. If not, you can get foam insulation on Amazon pretty cheap. So that is step one, what you're going to need to get and where to get it. So the next step is you got to balance your cells. So these are different cells, and I didn't have enough bus bars, so these are my homemade bus bars, so forgive them. Actually, they're probably better because they're really thick copper. Anyway, you're going to have to balance the cells. So you want all of the cells to be at the same state of charge when you put together your battery. So to do that, you put them in what's called parallel, which means you have positive, 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 negative, 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 negative. Then you hook it up to your battery charger, positive, negative. You turn on your battery charger, you set it to what voltage you want. These things fully charged are 3.6. So you set the voltage to 3.6 and you'll see the amperage come up. And as they get full, the amperage will drop and drop and drop and drop till basically it gets to essentially nothing. That's when you know these are fully charged. But you want to make sure they're fully charged and they're at the same state of charge before you put them into your series, which is making the actual battery. So this is a really important step, is balancing. It's called top balancing. You can also bottom balance it, but I find that for new cells that are in good shape, top balancing is all you need to do. So once you have everything top balanced, same state of charge, and you're comfortable with that, we're then going to put them in series. We're going to attach bus bars, we're going to tape them together, and we're going to put on our balance lead. So the first thing is, and I've already done this because I did these already, and this is an old battery. You take this double-sided tape, you put it in between the cells, and you tape them together so it's one unit. It just makes your life a lot easier. Then we're going to put these on here, and I'm only doing this just to show you the idea. But before we go any further, anytime you're touching your terminals, get a pair of safety glasses on those eyeballs, because if these things short out, if you make a mistake and you drop a tool or you just aren't paying attention and you short out the terminals and they spark, they're going to send out a huge molten metal into your face, and you don't want that. So mandatory, you have to have safety glasses on anytime you're dealing with bus bars. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our ring terminals, and then we're going to screw them on here, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So this part is not particularly difficult. If you've ever stripped a wire, you just put it in there and strip it out. If you have stripped wires, that's pretty much all there is to it. So I'm probably just going to fast forward this because it's just going to be me here stripping wires. One thing I've heard people say is on your balance leads or any wires in general, you want to have them the same length, because different length wires can have different resistance, and of course resistance can affect your voltage. And that is completely 100% true. But and I never cut my wires, but if you want to cut them to make them look nicer, the resistance voltage loss that you're going to have on these teeny little wires is not going to be a big deal. But technically they're right. So this is actually my favorite part, is heating up these terminals. I don't know why, but I just love it. So all you do is apply heat, and these will shrink around that. It just gives an extra level of safety. So there you go. We got all of our terminals, our ring connectors hooked up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hook up all of these. So I'll walk you through what the different colors mean as soon as I put my heat gun away. So this next step is really, really important that you do it correctly, because if you don't, you can cause a world of hurt. So you can see there's different colors here. So this black wire is going to go to your first negative. The next white wire, and normally these are all red. This BMS does it a little bit differently. This white wire is going to go to your first positive. The second wire is going to go to your next positive. Third one is going to go to your next positive after that. And the fourth one is going to go to your positive. That's going to be your new positive terminal for your battery. So let's get these all hooked up. I can't stress this enough. Do this slowly. Double check it, triple check it, because if you hook these up wrong, you'll wreck your BMS. And also, if you notice my BMS is not connected, you want to hook these up to your battery before you hook this up to your BMS. So I'm going to hook this first one up, but I'm not going to tie it down because we're still going to hook up our negative from our BMS here. So this is just kind of show you the idea. And the next one, we want to make sure we get this first wire. And I'll go to first wire positive. I'm only hand tightening these all right now. Then we grab our second wire. Again, be very, very careful. There's no rush. Do this nice and slow. One thing is you want to put your ring terminals on top of your bus bar, not the other way around. And I will say it again, make sure you have safety goggles on during this step. You just never know what's going to happen. I haven't had a lot of problems, but I have accidentally shorted out a battery. And I'll tell you, it is not fun. Third. And our fourth and final. Again, this one is going to be temporary because you can from here hook up your positive. So normally what you would do is you'd put this in a box, then you'd have the wire, the positive from here, go into your new terminal on your box. So if you had a normal looking battery, this would go out, the BMS, this would go to your BMS, the BMS negative would be your new negative, that would go underneath your lug in your box. This would go out to your underneath in your lug in your battery box. So then this would be the new positive, new negative would be here. So we're not going to tighten this one down all the way yet either. So now that those are on, I'm going to double check everything. Negative. Our first white is on our first positive. Our second white is on our second positive. Our third white is on our third positive. And our fourth is on our new terminal. Another trick is, depending on where you want to put your BMS, you can point all of these guys in the same direction. So that'll just help with your battery wire management. Have them neat. That's just a tip. So now that the balance leads are hooked up, the next step is to take these guys and to hook them up to the BMS, which is basically the same idea. We're just going to strip it off and then hook them up, but we're going to use these bigger ones and not the smaller red ones. So just like before, we're going to tug on them, make sure they're snug, and then we're going to heat shrink them. We got all of our leads on. So now what we're going to do is, it says B negative. So these three are going to go on the B negative, and these three that say C1, they're going to be your new lead. So if you had a battery box, you could run these up and they would be your new lead. This is a really important part right here. This is a temperature sensor. If these batteries get too hot, you know, if they're somewhere where it's 110, 120 degrees, they won't perform as well, and you can actually start hurting them. But more importantly is if they get too cold, you can have a real big problem. If these guys get below freezing, you know, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or below, you can't charge them or you'll kill them. You can discharge them, but you can't charge them. So this will limit the charging when it's cold, and that's critical for these batteries. So this little guy is really important. So what I usually do is I'll tape it to over here by the positive. So once we get this guy situated, I'm going to tape that up. So remember this foam we talked about earlier? Well, this is where this comes into play. I'm going to mount this guy to the side here, and it has a nice heat sink, but it will get hot. So you want to protect the batteries a little bit. So no matter where you put this, and I'm going to put it here temporarily, but you want to have some sort of insulation between your BMS and your battery, because you don't want your batteries to get hot. So you don't want the heat from this BMS transferring over to here. So I'm going to mount this guy, and then I'm going to wrap it with some Captain tape, this stuff here, get this thing all situated, and then we're going to zip up these balance leads, and we're going to hook it all up and test it. Remember I talked about having 2 wrenches and an extra nut? Well, because I'm not actually putting this in a box, I'm tightening these down so it's all one unit here. So now this is your new negative and this is your positive. So if we test it, let's see if this thing actually works. So we go, there's the positive and there's our negative, and we get 13, basically 13.6. So now if we touch it to here and we get 13.6, then we know everything works. And there we go, the exact same voltage. So we have created a battery. So I've torn my battery apart because I want to do some diagnostics. First thing I want to do is I want to test to see if my low temperature shutoff actually works. Then I'm going to do some capacity testing. What I got is some ice water, actually salt ice water, so it's even extra cold. And I'm going to put it in here, and as you can see, I already have my battery charger hooked up. And then remember, it's not hooked up to here, it's actually hooked up to the BMS on your negative side. You don't want to hook it up to here because then you won't be running through your BMS and it won't do anything. So I'm going to turn on my battery charger, and I'm going to set it high. It's at 14.1 right now, and I can see it's drawing 7, almost 8 amps. And so now, when I put this in here, it should shut off. And there it goes. It's shut off. It's at 14.1, but there's no amp, so it completely worked. Excellent. So now I'm going to warm this back up. And it should start, yeah, look at that. Warmed it back up. And started charging again. So this low temperature disconnect works perfectly.